Dipika, and they're going to talk about hot and cold executive functions in terms of FSI students.
I am Dipika,
And I'm Darren.
and the past 6 weeks we've been researching about hot and cold executive functions and their correlation with academic risk-taking. So I thought we'd start off with a comic. So, reverse procrastination. Wow, you finished all your work? Yeah, I planned to just waste time on the internet today, but I got super distracted. Okay.
Executive function is using cognitive skills. It's There's hot and cold executive function. Cold is using regulate and control planning and goal setting, long-term planning, setting things up ahead of time, setting out basically a schedule. It's also memory and attention. It has to do with decision making and adaptability. It's in the executive function is located in the prefrontal cortex, in the front part of your brain, and they have two different categories: hot and cold. Cold executive function, originally in the dorsolateral section, which is up top more. Planning, adaptability, again, long-term goal setting, does not involve any emotional response. It's all memory and planning. Hot executive.
So hot executive functions are basically just like cold executive functions, and they do focus on planning and adaptability, but these are under a more emotional setting. There's more motivation involved. The participants are usually more tense, and so it's in a high emotion setting. And they are usually located in the medial and ventral sections of the brain. And it's most commonly correlated with immediate gratification. One example of that would be if you had $500 and you had to wait 1 week to get it, would you do it, or would you want it right away? Or
If you were offered, let's say, $800 today or $1,000 a week, would you take that? Or then the next scenario is if you were offered $800 today or $2,000 in a month, or basically you change the time that someone has to wait, the amount of money that they're given. Some people take the rewards now, instant gratification, immediate gratification, because they want the money now instead of waiting. And even though they have to wait, they'd earn more money. They sacrifice the bigger reward for the smaller reward. This was seen when in testing with kids, where they would show children marshmallows, and they would say you could have a marshmallow now or wait 10 minutes and you get two. Most of the kids would choose to have that marshmallow now. But it would change if you showed a kid a picture of a marshmallow that you can have one marshmallow now, or if you wait 10 minutes, you could have two. They would choose the 10 and the 2 in 10 minutes.
And so the other part of this presentation is academic risk-taking. And what we do know is that academic risk-taking is very prevalent across schools in America and most of the world. And people have only tried to stop it, but they have not tried to figure out why it happens biologically. And so that's what we tried to see. There are two types of academic risk-taking: positive and negative. In the positive, you have guesstimation, or what people would call taking the best answer out of multiple choice when you don't really know the answer for sure. And there's also the taking of challenging courses instead of just taking the easy way out when you're picking classes. And the other category, negative risk-taking, includes behaviors such as cheating, procrastination, plagiarism, and stimulant usage. And so,
Our methods. Some of you guys went with us and helped us test. Some of you didn't. For those of you who didn't, we had everyone fill out a release form. The release form was the same for all of the participants, basically stating what we were doing, the risks that were involved, and how long the test was. Then we showed them the Tower of London, which is over the other side. The three, as you can see, there are 3 pegs. The smallest peg, which can hold 1 ball, the middle peg, which can hold 2, and the tallest peg that can hold 3. You can only move 1 ball at a time, and like this. But you can't move a ball that's under another ball, and you have to move a ball to another peg. What you do is you'd have a certain number of moves. The first 10 were 4, the next 10 were 5, and the last 10 were 6 moves. And you have to get from the goal, from the starting position, which I can't see now, to the goal in a certain number of moves. What we were taught was that when someone saw this, their first instinct would be to try to move the red ball to this, which is one of the signs of instant gratification. But in most of the cases on these, you wouldn't want to do that. You'd want to start with one of the other balls and wait to move the red one later. After we did the Tower of London, that usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes, we'd introduce 2 different surveys. I did a hot executive function survey, which asked 14 different scenario questions and had people fill out on a scale of 1 to 5 how it would affect their emotion, their motivation, and their performance. And then Dipika did
an academic risk-taking survey, which had 6 scenarios, but with 7 dependent variables that asked for the motivation that would, what motivations would cause the average high school student to act through these behaviors, and also how likely it is and how risky it is. And so, both of the surveys were focused on a Likert scale from 1 to 5, and this helped us quickly and efficiently categorize the data and synthesize and analyze the data. And so the results of the Tower of London survey it's out of 30. There were 30 puzzles, and the result was 27 out of 30. That was the average. And for FSI, the 20 students that we tested here. And our mentors previously did a survey involving college students, and I believe that average was 22.5 out of 30.
So on the hot executive function survey, our results were the accurate. What I found was that the different scenarios, most of them had the same results, except for the first one. When you were being observed by a peer and an authority figure, your motivation was increased much more than all the others, because when you're observed, you are more likely you want to impress someone. So the authority figure, you're trying to impress them more than just than a peer or another classmate. You want to do the best you can. We found when you are given a food reward, a monetary reward, or a extra credit reward, the emotional response was the most increased, as the loss of one of those rewards would increase stress levels. And so you would try to do your best on those to get the best reward possible and not lose them. Then I had to examine the other 6 questions together because they didn't have parallels. They were, you are being timed, you can redo the missed items, you are not penalized for an extra move, you are competing with others for the highest score, and you are given a score to beat. Most of these triggered, some of these triggered negative emotional response, like you are being timed. When you are being timed, you are more stressed out than if you had as much time as you needed, and you are more likely to make a mistake in that scenario. But ones where you are given the score to beat, or where the score is made public, you are having a higher motivational response, where you want to do the best you can to try and beat the other people.
All right. For the academic risk-taking survey, we first analyzed the negative scenarios that we put in, and we found that the plagiarism and stimulant usage were the behaviors that were thought to be the most likely to most likely to happen. And most of the FSI students thought that procrastination is the most risky of all the scenarios given. And also, peer pressure wasn't much of a motivation that caused any change. So we thought that that was because that the FSI students are very talented and they have this innate sense of like wanting to do what they want to do. And we found that procrastination caused the most negative emotional reaction, and that stimulant usage the least. And so for the positive part of the academic risk-taking survey, we found that students take part in guesstimation more than taking challenging courses, and that they thought that taking the challenging courses would be more risky than the guesstimation. And also, the FSI students didn't think that guesstimation would be a form of breaking rules. And so we found that guesstimation would be the one that caused most emotion within our survey. So what does this actually mean? Like we said before, FSI had a higher score on the Tower of London. And so this just means that we are hardworking, intelligent students that have our own motivation, and that we think through the risks of instant gratification and to go with long-term planning, and that better performance on the Tower of London and the lower ratings of the riskiness of the positive academic risk-taking were correlating highly. So there, and also we found a high correlation between the low ratings on parental pressure being the motivator of positive academic risk-taking. And so we'd like to thank our mentor, Dr. Marilyn Welsh, and Caitlin Rohrbacher for being amazing mentors.
And we'd like to thank the Raghuraman family at Excel Energy, Suncor Energy, and the Kinder Morgan Foundation for their research sponsorships and the opportunity to be here. Thank you to Lori Ball and all of the FSI staff for a wonderful learning opportunity. Thank you, Eric, Scott, and Kai. Thank you to the UNC staff for hosting us at Balfour, Holmes, and Ross. Thank you to all the guest lecturers for a nice, varied view of the world of science, math, and technology.